Hi everyone, my name is Katherine and I'm with the Canadian Union of Public Employees and Labour for Palestine in Canada, which is a subgroup of the Coalition Against Israeli Apartheid. I'm just going to do a very, very quick introduction on the work that's been happening in Canada, and I'll keep it brief so that we can use this space to actually have a discussion about strategy and organizing in the U.S. context. So Peter, Julie, and I are here from a group called Labour for Palestine in Toronto, and we're a group of rank-and-file activists in a range of unions in Canada. Our organizing initially grew out of the call from Palestine in 2005 by civil society organizations and unions for a campaign of boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. And how many people are familiar with the Bds Call here? How many people have read it? Most people? Okay. So it's modeled basically after the campaign that ended to end South African apartheid. And it calls for three things. One, the end of the occupation and the dismantling of the apartheid wall, full equality for Palestinian citizens of Israel, and full compliance with Resolution 194, the right of return. And to do this, our union actually put forward a motion in May of 2006, which was adopted at our annual convention. And this was in the Ontario, so the provincial section of the Canadian Union of Public Employees. And what it called for was actually to support the call, to endorse the call, and to develop an education campaign and do research into how we actually boycott and divest from Israel. And shortly after that, we formed a group, a labor caucus, at a conference of the Coalition Against Israeli Apartheid. And the basis of unity there at the coalition was to develop various sectors, so labor, students, and various other sectors, civil society sectors, to work on the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign. Because the call came from Palestine, that was, for us, seemed to be the base that needed to be the basis of unity for our work. So we developed out of that conference, and actually there's going to be a second conference coming up this fall, another boycott, divestment, sanctions conference in Montreal this October, which we could talk about later. So our focus has been actually in terms of doing rank and file education. That is what we've been trying to do. We began working within CUPE, and partially because we were assisted by the passing of our resolution to be able to make use of the union kind of institution and machine. So in order to do a very broad campaign. So this began by the developing of materials with leaders and staff and organizing trainings for rank and file activists who wanted to give educationals on Palestine. And so this is what I passed around earlier. This is the material that we developed, which was an 8-page document, which we've now adopted as a general call. This is specifically for CUPE members, so it's more focused on our motion. But what it does is it actually goes through and it outlines the basics of Palestine. It has some maps, some comparisons to South African apartheid, and then looks at different sectors of society and then how to do boycott, divestment work, some links, because we were still just developing some of the research into what to boycott. So from the fall of 2006 to the spring of 2007, we developed and distributed materials, we trained about 25 members, rank and file members, to do educationals in pairs. So we went to councils, committees, and locals. So we first were invited to allied committees, so like racial justice, human rights, women's committees, and already supported locals. And then from there we got space at schools, sectoral conferences, conventions, councils, and area meetings. And after we went through our already existing networks, we started to begin to do call-arounds through the union list, and actually asked to be invited to general membership meetings of locals. So we were able to, when we basically did this for about a couple of years, going all across the province to various locals. And we distributed probably 4,000 to 5,000 of these booklets at the various conventions and whatnot. And And then since then, we've been, and throughout, we have been responding to a lot of backlash inside our union and outside, and from outside our union. Thankfully, now our union is no longer isolated. We were the only union that had such a position. Now, a national union of the National Union of Postal Workers, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, took on a boycott, divestment, sanctions motion just when was that? In 2008. I think in 2008. Yeah, and a number of Quebec unions have also done the same. Mostly public sector unions have passed these motions and are now doing their own educationals within their union. Now, Teachers for Palestine is another subgroup which has been working with us at various levels. Initially, they sought to use the momentum and the debate caused by our motion to actually pass a motion within their union. And this motion was fiercely opposed by the leadership and outside organizing and was defeated, which was an initial setback. And since then, though, the committee has worked to do educationals through the Human Rights Committee, pass smaller motions, such as that against the attack on Gaza in 2008, 2009, and push for pension funds to divest from Israel and lobby for the integration of education on Palestine in curriculum. So they've been working on multiple fronts in their union and focusing on education and not so much on reservations. So, yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah. It's just for Ontario, and it's just for secondary school teachers.
It has a lot of members.
It does. Yeah, yeah. So since 2008, we've mostly worked to organize around conventions, organizing forums and leafleting, etc., and trying to break through in some other unions that we don't have as many members in. We do have some private sector rank and file members in our group, but we haven't been able to break through those barriers. And so we've been trying to build links with with other unionists across the country. Now, this fall we're going to be organizing to get back into locals and councils again by hosting 2 trade unionists, one from Palestine and one from South Africa. We're hoping to tour across Quebec and Ontario, but possibly also to go out west. So that's where we're at, and I can answer other questions that people have